This is DJ Kool Herc, the father of hip hop. This is going out to my man over in Japan.
1970s Bronx, the birthplace of hip hop. Economically depressed and struggling, people of color developed this subculture as a political statement. In a way, an act of resistance against elitism, including that of live instruments, their cost, their exclusivity. Primarily, young African Americans took advantage of modern technology in unorthodox ways. A couple of records, a small sampler, and some creativity was all it took to create a catchy beat. Sampling was cheap, easily accessible, and the possibilities of expression were endless. In the words of Hank Shocklee, a member of Public Enemy's production team, the reason why we sampled in the beginning was that we couldn't afford to have a guitar player come in and play on our record. We couldn't afford to have that horn section, or the string sections. We were like scavengers, going through the garbage bin and finding whatever we could from our old dusty records. But to understand this, we need to take a look at the birth of sampling. That was Musique Concrète, French for concrete music. That particular piece, Et tout d'un chemin de fer, is made from recordings of trains. The man behind it is French engineer, anti-nuclear war activist, and fiction author Pierre-Henri Marie Schaeffer. The year is 1936. Graduated from the Polytechnic School, Schaeffer has just moved to Paris to start work as an engineer for the Radiodiffusion Française, inspired by the theories of Luigi Russolo, an Italian futurist. Yeah, that's his actual job. Schaeffer's work is focused on what is called research into noises. Yes, that's its actual name. His experiments are downright insane for the time. He loops the sound, slows it down, speeds it up, does all sorts of crazy things. Cue Pierre-Henri, a composer who, unlike him, was actually classically trained. Together they co-found the Concrete Music Research Group, the first studio designed specifically for electroacoustic music. They start pumping out compositions, which aren't so well received. Critics call it unlistenable, little noise. Nonetheless, the duo is unfazed and get famous while at it. Over the years, the two of them become snobs? I mean, Schaeffer rejects instruments, demanding that only things like birds, footsteps, and traffic sounds be used. Henri is more accepting, but still refuses to acknowledge any association to electric music, as opposed to his completely different electroacoustic music. But what does any of this have to do with hip-hop? That was Public Enemy's Fight the Power, and it features a total of 22 samples, as in the single song. By the end of the 1980s, sampling was everywhere. Paul's Boutique in 1989 by the Beastie Boys has over 100 samples on a 15-track album. The importance of sampling in hip-hop is common knowledge amongst the pioneers of the genre, but is it common knowledge amongst all the people it has influenced in the world nowadays? How big of a fan of hip-hop would you say you are?
I don't listen to hip-hop that much, but I guess when I listen to it, I enjoy it.
I really like hip-hop. I think my favorite era is late 90s, early 2000s with Eminem, 50 Cent, Dre, and all those guys.
I agree.
I used to really like hip-hop when I was younger, but I'm more of an old-school hip-hop kind of fan, not the new hip-hop.
And do you guys know what sampling is?
Is it reusing a beat? Is that what it is? Reusing a beat?
More or less. I will play you something and I want you to tell me what you think of it, okay?
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
When criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frighten all who see or hear, the cry goes up both far and near for
So, had you ever heard that before?
Nope.
I know the theme song, but I can't recognize what it's sampled from.
Okay, now I'll show you something else, okay?
Wu-Tang, okay.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to with. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to f with. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to f with.
Wait. Are you saying the Wu-Tang Clan took from Underdog?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So this is what sampling is called. Well, I guess I knew of instances that different songs have used this, but I didn't know that it was called sampling. I would have never guessed that it's taken from Underdog.
Since now you know what we're talking about, if you can guess what song uses this sample, okay?
Yeah, instantly.
God.
Instantly.
Parce que tu crois que tu es ma faiblesse.
I can almost sing it. It goes like. "Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na." Is it that song?
Oh, yeah. I think you're talking about the French
Yes,
singer,
yes,
no?
yes. It's another French song.
My brain is screaming Eminem, but I just can't remember which one it is.
You want me to play the song?
Yeah.
Is it
Yes,
real,
please.
Katie?
Are you Boston? Put your motherfucking hands back up in the air. Put your hands back up in the air, y'all.
It's practically the same.
Just slow down.
The last song I'll play you is called The Edge, is by David McCollum, and I want to ask you if you've ever heard of it. It's from 1962.
Never heard of that.
You have never heard of this song. The second I play it, I bet you will
You're gonna
instantly...
recognize it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, this is the 1962 version, and this song is called The Edge, and it had like no popularity back then. I'll play it, okay?
The G, man, yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow, it's exactly the same. Oh my god.
I got chills. I got goosebumps. Because I thought of one of my favorite hip hop songs by Notorious Big, and I thought, what if that one is also like has been sampled, you know?
The hip-hop scene faced one major change in December of 1991 when the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York ruled that any future music sampling would need to be approved by the original copyright owners. Non-permitted use would constitute copyright infringement. This would change the hip-hop industry forever. All at once, sampling got expensive and difficult. According to music magazine Spin, the average base price to clear a single sample today is $10,000. Ironically, it became much cheaper to hire instrumentalists for your track than to sample a single song. The Washington Post even likened the use of samples to acts of extravagance, such as flaunting expensive bottles, Lambos, etc. Nowadays, artists with access to a limited pool of samples will rarely sample more than 2 songs on a track, and even then, they are often faced with million-dollar lawsuits. This automatically meant that to make music, to have a voice, you need to be able to afford it. Many argue that this brought about the decline of hip-hop as an art form. From a time when rap shone light on real issues of discrimination, poverty, racism in America, and so on, it became common for artists who address social and political issues in their communities to be considered underground when compared to the rampant flex culture. Such is the case with Kendrick Lamar, who is widely considered as one of the greatest rappers of all time. He was once one of those underground rappers. His success, however, proves that there is still a market for the real or more or less old school hip hop. Sampling has been a roller coaster ride. It was born out of anti-elitism towards traditional music at the avant-garde devices of Pierre Schaeffer, and slowly settled into a different sense of elitism, one that was shattered with the birth of hip-hop and the unorthodox use of machines to loop sounds to be rapped over. Sampling reclaimed anti-snobism. It protested against injustice in expression. Decades later, the cycle has once again reached a point where this technique is a show of extravagance. This phenomenon reflects a social pattern. all through the use of a common and seemingly insignificant musical technique. And it raises the question, will this technique continue to spin its cycle as music evolves?